The text by Riss in Wonderland. Edward, Mary and Vincent stared at his phone in disbelief. He wanted to look away, but oh boy did he want to keep looking as well. Edward owned a small company just north of Peachtree that provided internet, cable, and some security to local businesses. He had a good staff too. In fact, a few of his old friends now worked for him. Johnny, Ed, and believe it or not, Kevin Barr was his lead technician. Being the lead technician, Kevin had access to Edward's personal cell phone information, which would explain how a certain photo of a certain male body part ended up in Edward's possession. Part of him was screaming at him to delete it. I'd never think of it again, but the other part of him was enticed by it. It had been on his mind all weekend. One little, but not so little, winky face, picture, and a small text of promises to see him on Monday was having him close to the exploding. Kevin was as straight as they come, or so he thought. Edward was the only man in their town and hometown to have had the courage to openly come out to everyone. Now all he wanted to know was how Kevin's dick ended up on his phone screen. He looked up at the clock and saw it was nearly 8 AM. That means Kevin should be set up at his desk. So Edward stood up and walked to the door of his office and peeked out. Sure enough, he saw Kevin's bright red hair bobbing from behind. "Mr. Barr, can I see you in my office for a moment?" Edward said in a calm tone as Kevin's body went stiff. He turned to face him and had the slightest blush on his face. "God, that's hot," Edward thought to himself as he turned around. A few seconds later, Kevin was at his door, knocking softly. "Come in, Barr," Edward called. "Good morning, Dee. What's up?" Kevin said nonchalantly. "Do you know why I've called you into my office?" Edward asked, staring into Kevin's gorgeous green eyes. Was it because of that dick pic I accidentally sent? Look, boss, I didn't mean to. I was trying to send it to someone else and I forgot I had Out's convo up," Kevin said hurriedly. "Accidentally, huh?" Edward said as he got to cross the room and locked the door. "You know, I'm not a weak little kid anymore, Barr, and I'm a very smart man. I can see the way you've been looking at me lately. I know why you picked on me the least when we were kids. It was no accident. That picture ended up in my possession," Edward said as he walked back over to Kevin and pulled his chair back far enough so he could sit in front of him. What are you gonna do now, Ed?" Kevin barely got out. Sure, he had felt some odd feelings for his boss and old childhood friend as of late, but honestly, it was a happy accident he'd sent that picture to Ed. He meant to send it to some guy he met on Tinder. "Oh, I just want an up-and-close personal view." Ed leaned down and started to unbutton Kevin's pants. Looking him in those eyes, Ed pulled back the band of his boxers and reached inside. Kevin was quivering from even just the slightest brush of Ed's fingers on his dick. Smiling, Ed pulled it out and stared at it. It was huge, the biggest he had seen, and it was making him hungry. I've just eaten, so I'm not hungry. There was one small thing about Edward that Kevin was about to learn. He practically had no gag reflex at all. It was odd. That is not how Kevin expected this to go. Ed leaning down on his knees, buttoned down and slacks making him look oh so professional. It was such a turn on. His cock grew harder in Ed's hand, and what Ed did next set his soul on fire. Ed had always told his tongue was that of a god's, and now Kevin was about to learn all about it. He licked the base of Kevin's cock, holding his ball in his left hand, making his way up. Ed licked each little vein and then that huge vein going from base to tip, and Kevin nearly screamed, biting his tongue and holding onto the chair for dear life. Kevin could have sworn his soul left his body at that moment. Edward's mouth took him in completely. No one had even taken him completely before. He used his right hand to caress the inside of Kevin's thigh before he got to work, bobbing up and down, giving a little squeeze to his balls every once in a while. And Kevin was a mess. Edward looked up at him and saw his head thrown back, mouth wide open in a never-ending moan, and his knuckles turning wide from gripping the chair. So naturally he picked up the speed, licking it and sucking and bobbing. He felt Kevin's hands grab on the back of his head, running his fingers through his raven locks. Now he was meeting Ed's tempo, buckling his hips and holding onto his head for dear life. Then everything went white, and bliss and relief took over him, and Edward took every last drop into his mouth and swallowed. Fuck. Where? How? Fuck, man. Kevin panted. That was the best blowjob of his entire life. Maybe I could teach you a thing or two. My house, 8p.m. Don't be late. I don't like to be kept waiting, Edward said as he stood up and walked back over to his office door. You got a job at the Bronson and Miller. It's the Jansons. They're having trouble in getting their Wi-Fi to stay connected. I trust you can fix the problem. Now get out of my office, bar. Edward said, opening the door and motioning for him to leave. The end.